Here is something most people get wrong about property. They think the wealth comes from the property. It goes up, you sell, you win. But watch how the wealthy actually use it. And the property is almost beside the point. What they are really doing is holding a very large debt for a very long time and letting two quiet forces do the work. Inflation and the profit from a business that pays the debt down without them ever feeling it. The house is just the thing that lets them hold the debt. This is step 2 of the blueprint, and the property was never the point. Quick, but it matters. This is general information, not personal advice. Your situation is your own, so get advice before you act. Now, why is property step 2 and not step 1? Because property does not create wealth on its own. It parks it. It takes the output of the engine you built in step 1, the surplus profit, and it turns active income into a leveraged long-term asset, which means you need the engine first. Try to run this step without it, and you are not an investor holding an asset. You are a borrower hoping a price goes up. Get the order right though, and property becomes the second wall on the plan, the place the engine's output goes to grow. By the end of this, you will be able to read that wall, why it sits here, what actually does the work, and the single decision that separates wealth from fragility. Start with why the order is not negotiable. In step 1, you build a business that throws off more than it consumes. That surplus has to go somewhere. It can sit in a bank account, losing a little to inflation every year, or it can be put to work. Property is the first place most business owners put it, and for one specific reason. It is the asset a bank will lend against most heavily. You bring $1 of the engine's profit as a deposit, and the bank lets you control an asset worth 5 or 6 times that dollar. No other common asset gives an ordinary investor that much leverage, that cheaply. So step 2 is really a conversion. You are converting active income, the profit you have to keep working for, into a passive leveraged asset that can grow while you run the business. But here is the part people skip. The leverage only works if something reliable is feeding it. A property with a big loan and no engine behind it is fragile. The same property with a profitable business quietly covering the shortfall is an asset compounding in the background. Same bricks, completely different machine. That is why business comes first and property second. The engine is what makes the leverage safe. The property is not the point. So what is? Two forces working together that almost nobody talks about at a barbecue. The first is inflation. When you borrow, say, $600,000 to buy a property, that debt is fixed in today's dollars. But every year, inflation quietly shrinks what those dollars are worth. 10 years on, you still owe $600,000, but $600,000 buys far less than it used to. Inflation has eaten into your debt while you slept. You did nothing. The number just got smaller in real terms. The second force is the engine. The rent rarely covers the whole loan, especially early on. That gap is where step 1 earns its keep. The business profit covers the shortfall comfortably, so you can hold the asset through the years it takes for inflation and growth to do their work. Put those together, and here is the quiet truth of step 2. The wealthy borrow as much as they safely can, and then they simply wait. The leverage is switched on deliberately for years. Now, I have to be honest here because this channel does not sell fantasies. This cuts both ways. Rates can rise and a variable loan gets more expensive overnight. Prices can fall and leverage magnifies the fall exactly as much as it magnifies the gain. And there is a serviceability wall. The bank will only lend while the numbers stack up, and one day they stop stacking up. Leverage is a powerful tool and an unforgiving one. Size it so a rate rise does not sink you and it becomes the engine of step 2. Ignore the downside and it becomes the thing that ends the plan. So far, I have described property as if it is one thing. It is not. There are 2 very different jobs property does in this plan, and the order you do them in matters. The first job is growth, and for growth, most builders start with residential. houses and units in places people want to live tend to appreciate over long periods, and residential is where the leverage is cheapest and easiest to get. So, the early years of step 2 are usually residential. Buy, hold, let inflation, growth, and the engine do their work, and use the growing equity to buy the next one. That is the accumulation phase. Leverage on, but residential has a weakness. The rent is low relative to the price. A good residential property might return 4 to 5% in rent before costs, which is fine while you are chasing growth, and close to useless when you eventually want the asset to pay you. So as the plan matures, the job changes from growth to cash flow, and that is where commercial property enters. A commercial property, a warehouse, a shopfront, a medical suite typically yields far more in rent than a house, and the leases work differently. Often the tenant pays the outgoings, the rates, the insurance, the maintenance on what is called a net lease. So commercial tends to throw off real usable income. It is less about the price going up and more about the check that arrives every month. And here is a detail worth knowing because the ground recently moved. The recent, now legislated changes to how you negatively geared established residential property do not touch commercial property at all. Commercial stays under the existing arrangements. I will not put the mechanics in this video because they deserve their own breakdown, but the shape of it matters for the plan. Residential first for growth, while you can still ride the leverage, and commercial later for the income that eventually helps switch the whole plan into its next phase. Growth, then cash flow, in that order. Which brings us to the wall of step 2, the one that separates the people who build wealth with property from the people who build fragility. It is not which property you buy. That is the part everyone obsesses over, and it is not where this channel lives. The wall is how you hold it and how you finance it. Take how you hold it first. The same property can be owned in your own name, or by a company, or by a trust, or inside your super fund. And the choice is not cosmetic. It changes who is protected if something goes wrong, how the gain is taxed when you sell, and what you pay in land tax while you hold. An asset in the wrong structure can be perfectly profitable and still be exposed, or still be taxed far more heavily than it ever needed to be. That decision is best made before you buy, because unwinding it later can trigger the very tax you are trying to manage. Now, how you finance it. There is one loan mistake that quietly traps more property investors than any other, letting the bank tie all your properties together as security for each other. It feels harmless. The bank likes it. But the day you want to sell one or pull equity out of one, you find they are all chained together, and you cannot move a single one without the bank's blessing on all of them. Keeping the loans standalone costs you a little convenience now and buys you enormous flexibility later. And flexibility is the whole game because the ground moves. The rules on how property is taxed and geared do change, sometimes with very little notice, and the recent changes to negative gearing are the clearest example in years. You cannot control that. What you can control is building the structure so it is resilient, not brittle, when the rules shift. That is the advisor's real job in step 2, not picking the property, making sure that when it grows, the growth actually reaches you, and when the ground moves, you're still standing. So step 2 is not simply buy property. It is this. Take the output of the engine and park it in an asset the bank will let you control many times over. Hold that debt through the years while inflation shrinks it and the engine services it. Start with residential for growth and move toward commercial for the income you will eventually need. And hold all of it inside structures built to survive, both the tax and the changing rules. The property was never the point. The point was the debt, the time, and the structure around them. Get step 2 right, and you have a second wall on the plan. The engine's output, parked and leveraged and quietly compounding, ready for the 2 steps that come next. Because there is a limit to how much even a good engine can borrow, and what you do the day you hit that limit is step 3. Next in the series is step 3, What happens when the engine is running, the property is leveraged to the hilt, and the bank finally says no more? That is the moment shares enter the plan, and the reason they enter here and not before surprises most people. If this was useful, hit the like button. It genuinely helps the channel reach more Australians who need to see this. And subscribe so you catch step 3 the moment it lands.